Hello, and welcome to the UTRGV TMEA All-State Virtual Etude Clinic for the 2020-2021 season. My name is Dr. Monica Martinez, and I am the Assistant Professor of Horn at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. These are going to be instructional videos that should help navigate you through these etudes in a more systematic approach, breaking everything down step by step. Feel free to email me at any time at monica.martinez@utrgv.edu if you have any questions or would like to set up a private lesson or consultation. All right, let's do it.
All right, let's start with these practice tips. If you've watched the other videos, you'll notice that this is very similar. I think it's very, very crucial to take everything by sections or phrases. You do not want to overwhelm yourself. So, just do sections at a time, chunk it up. Next, you want to mark your phrases and breath marks. Be aware that this could change as you start to progress because of the fact that you might start changing your tempo or your breathing. You might be able to go longer distances. So I would say at least 2 to 3 weeks maybe before you start getting ready to submit your recordings. Then at that point, I would say try to stay really strict with what you have and not change anything, because you want to aim for consistency at that point. And then lastly, as far as practice tips, this is how I like to practice. I think about everything in layers. So the first layer, because I think they're equally as important, we have notes and rhythm. So pitch and rhythmic accuracy. We need to make sure that the notes are there, and it has to be the right rhythm, because if those are not there, then you're not playing the correct music in the correct style. Next are stylistic markings, such as grace notes, ornaments, mordents, and so on. Next, we have dynamics, self-explanatory, crescendos, louds, and softs. Obviously, because of the limitations that you might have with doing your audio, don't over stress about this. The judges, I would assume, would be understanding about this, so try your best at trying to bring this across, but always play with your best sound and play with your strengths at this moment. And then lastly, your tempo. Start slow. If you can't play it slow, you can't play it fast, so be very, very patient. So this one, of course, is the lyrical etude. I did put a couple notes right there. I think, again, you always want to create your best musical sound, so as great as it can come out in your recording. Because this is the lyrical etude, I think you have a little bit more liberty to take some musical risks. So just make sure you maintain that your air and your phrasing and constantly feel it churning and moving forward. So don't ever make it seem very choppy. Always, everything needs to move forward the whole time. Blow through those notes, especially those high notes. The high notes are usually not even the main thing, the main peak of that line. So that's why it's important to not just get the high note, but to continue the line so that we know where it's going and you complete that phrase. That's what's important. So with this section, again, I didn't put too many markings on here because I think it's pretty great as it is written out. I maybe made some recommendations with breath marks, but again, you breathe where you need to breathe, as long as you keep it musical and you round out your phrases so that nothing sounds clipped or outside of the character. So I do take the breath mark that is written in the first line, and then I actually prefer to breathe in the middle of measure 6, and I do not take the breath, so that's why you have the X there. I do not take the breath there in order to continue on towards the end of that phrase. So let's listen to this excerpt. again, I specifically wanted to record these in a small space. I didn't want to be in a big hall or anything like that because I wanted to relate more to the situation as it would be for you. So I'm in a room in my house. I do not have carpet, so if you notice to the side of me, there's like this real little couch that gives at least a little bit of fabric that can help kind of with my sound so that it's not too loud. And yeah, I still think it doesn't matter the space that you're in. You always try to continue to move your sound forward and always play with as good of a sound as you can get in the space that you're in. Let's move on to the next section. All right, so this section, you'll notice that there are lip trills. Yay! So we have lip trills, and because of where these are, I think these are best to be played on the F side, meaning no trigger. So the first one you're playing C to D, and you can play this one F side open, and then of course playing those grace notes, you can play those with the vowels. And then if you look at the other lip trill towards the end, you're going A to B, and I think you have a bunch of different options with this one, but for me, I like the way F side 1 and 2 was a little bit better in tune and freer to move. As far as other notes that I put in here, just note the difference between the grace note rhythms. Sometimes you have 16, sometimes you have 30 seconds, so be aware of that. But of course, you can use subtle rubato if you feel that musically as you're playing. Notice the breath marks that I chose to put. Again, these are my preferences, but of course you can breathe. You're going to have a lot of variations from a bunch of different people, and there isn't really a wrong answer. I just as long as you keep it musical and within the character, then and play with your best sound, then you will come across it in a nice musical way. So let's go ahead and listen to this next excerpt. So one last thing I want to add is I know that some of you might not be able to do the lip trills fast enough, and that's fine. You just need to, it doesn't matter how many times you're actually flipping within it, as long as you stay still in your tempo and your rhythm. So even if you're just flipping like da ya ya da 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 da, then that's totally fine. So let's go ahead and move on to the next section. This section is probably my favorite because even though rhythmically looking at it, I didn't put a lot of markings, but I feel that you can be pretty free in this section. It has more, it kind of asks for a little bit more either push and pull within the section. So I'm showing you my breath marks for the most part. And then of course, I did add a breath right after the G in measure 22, and then continuing on towards the end of this excerpt. So let's go ahead and hear this excerpt. So again, I would just say this, you can be pretty musical in this section, so I would say just don't play it too strict. feel free to do little slowdowns and moving forward with your tempo if you can do it subtly and still stay within the character. And then towards the end, we have this recap. So keep the same with your phrasing and your breath marks, just as you did the first time. There's something about being consistent that will be very beneficial towards your playing. So it's important sometimes even just to write recap. And then I do keep the same breath marks. I added a breath mark in measure 30 in order to continue going towards that rest towards the end. I do the retardando as marked, but I don't just do it in that measure. I kind of start a little bit before. So here is the final excerpt. And lastly, I like to close out the videos with a little bit extra tips, because you can always get as much information as possible to help you navigate through these etudes. So you have this one of the same scales as one of the other etudes, so G major scale again. Use this as part of your warm-up to get your ears and your face and everything thinking about that key. You want to look for patterns, repeated material, scale-like motions. Practice your lip trills daily. If this is one of those things that if you don't practice them, they could kind of fade away. So they'll be at your strongest if you're playing them consistently. You want to start slow and then work your way up to a comfortable tempo. Next is, playing in the high range does require fast, concentrated air. It needs to continue to churn and spin forward. Do not think so much about the high note in that line, but think about blowing past that high note. Always play with your best sound. Adjust the range, of course, if you need to in certain sections until your range develops, and then slowly put it back into the written form. Again, feel free to email me at monica.martinez@utrgv.edu if you have any questions.